Hey everybody. Today I'm talking about the urinary system. And when I teach on the urinary system, I start by asking my students this question. What is the first thing you think of when you hear urinary system? And I always get answers like urine, pee, urinary tract infections, drinking enough water. And I think that's pretty typical. We tend to think of the urinary system and the kidneys as a waste removal system. And today in this video, I'd like to reframe it as a amazing water maintenance system. So you may have heard me talk before about how land animals like ourselves really, there's these theories we kind of evolved out of the wetness and the wonderful salty sea. And so we living on dry land are still largely water. We're salt water, we're seawater, and we have to carry that with us in our cells and outside of our cells to bathe our cells. So we're really just these big bags of seawater walking around on the land, and we have to keep that seawater pristine and in good balance. And we have to keep all of it like you would in a fish tank, right? It has to all be balanced. Or if you want to think of it as a recipe, we need all the ingredients in the right amounts and balanced. So that's the first thing I would suggest. Looking at the urinary system in a different light to really understand what it is. It's a homeostasis system. It's really, and homeostasis is just a fancy word for what will save our lives. So again, we contrast that with the waste removal view. And even though it's true that the kidneys do function in waste removal, that's important. But if they stopped doing that tonight, we'd be okay for a little while compared to the immediate emergency that would happen if our kidneys stopped regulating all of the things they regulate to keep us in homeostasis, to keep that saltwater balance just perfect. So what do the kidneys do in terms of homeostasis? What don't they do? They do so much. They're freaking amazing. So I wrote down just a few things. Water volume and pressure. So, they keep the amount of water we need to live inside our body. We only get rid of what we can spare. So water volume is really important. And along with that goes water pressure. We need the right amount. So they're the main organ of regulating water pressure and water volume. And we need the ingredients right? We need the stuff in the water. And the fancy scientific term for stuff in the water is solutes. So we have electrolyte solutes and non-electrolyte. So all those electrolytes, those little chemicals that carry charges like sodium, chloride, magnesium, calcium, all that stuff has to be in the right ratios, and the kidneys control that. Also, the non-electrolytes, like the little sugars and proteins and things like that. Also, the pH balance. The kidneys largely regulate our pH balance, our hydrogen ion balance. So that and more. They also throw out hormones. They manufacture some hormones, and they can, even in emergency situations, in starvation or prolonged fasting, they can make sugar. So they can do a lot of amazing things. They can convert vitamin D into its active form. So we wouldn't even be able to use our vitamin D without our kidneys. So they do a lot of amazing things. And again, just to kind of wrap that up and stress that point again, the kidneys are amazing. They're the main functional units of our urinary system. And again, if we reframe that away from a waste removal system to a water maintenance system, we can see how they're responsible for us being to live in land or on land or in the desert or anywhere where we don't have access instantly to water. They're saving the water, and then they're maintaining everything in the water to make us be able to live as these crazy bags of salt water walking around on land. So if you're studying the different systems, one of the things you can do is reframe them by asking that question. Instead of just looking at the learning objectives and looking at the functions as they're listed, what do those really do to save our lives now? What do they really do to bring us into homeostasis?